Welcome, everyone. As we often say, it's not the quantity, but the quality of the audience. And without further delay, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce one of our extremely distinguished alumni, Dr. Karel Janeček. I hope I'm saying his name reasonably okay.
Very good. Very good.
And he, as you will soon find out, he wears many hats. Karel Janeček is a mathematician and social innovator dedicated to driving systemic change in society. He earned his PhD in mathematical finance from CMU and founded RSJ. He'll have to tell us what RSJ stands for, RSJ Investments, and so on. One of the most successful market makers on international derivative exchanges globally. Karel worked with Steve Shreve, who's in the audience, for his PhD. Over the past 2 decades, Karel has shifted his focus from financial markets to social innovation and civic engagement. He founded the Anti-Corruption Endowment to strengthen transparency in public life, the Janeček Foundation to support education, freedom, and creativity, and Institute H21, a think tank that focuses on protecting freedom of speech and research in voting systems. He is the author of the D21 voting method based on the effect of multiple votes that gives citizens more nuance and voice in decision-making and promotes consensus. D21 has been successfully applied in many applications, including New York City participatory budgeting and other places worldwide. Karel also founded the Neuron Endowment Fund for Support of Science, supporting top Czech scientists, and Janeček 21, forgive my pronunciation, a crowdfunding platform supporting social projects and helping people in life crises. In 2022, he ran as a candidate for president of the Czech Republic with a vision of fairness, freedom, and societal transformation. Today, he continues to explore the intersection of mathematics, consciousness, and human potential while championing initiatives that empower individuals and communities to thrive. His mission is to contribute to a free, more aware, and more collaborative world. Welcome, Karel.
Thank you. It is my great pleasure and honor to give a Berg lecture here at CMU. 21 years ago, I completed my PhD in mathematics here at Carnegie Mellon University. Today, I will talk to you about democracy. To some of you, this may look like a major shift in direction. In fact, it is not. My lifelong love for numbers and mathematics enabled me to look at various practical problems through the lenses of logic, structure, and rationality, and to devise and find solutions. I applied my knowledge of theoretical mathematics and math finance to create models for trading in international derivative exchanges. We became one of the largest and most successful market makers worldwide. I didn't stop there. I believe that mathematics can help us fix democracy. Today, I'm going to tell you how. Polarization separated society. Nobody will be surprised to see such a graph. We can see a crisis of democracy happening here, probably here in the United States, but not only here, in Europe as well. And we can see how the structure developed. The situation worsened significantly after COVID. Here is an analysis of polarization. The definition is that number 0 is that people from different parts of a political spectrum friendly, communicate, and discuss to each other. Number 4 is that they are full of hatred in the worst case. Not possible to communicate, not possible to find consensus. we can see the evolution. The evolution has been dramatically bad, actually, pretty much everywhere, including the United States, including Europe. Larry Diamond is a senior fellow at Stanford University who specializes in democratic transition. And this is his answer on how to fix polarization. We can see his statement that we need to change the electoral incentives. Because what is a problem of today's society? That compromise is politically dangerous. People who would like to find a common sense and solution are being ostracized, are losing power, are at a distinct disadvantage. And why is that? Well, the reason why it is among other things, of course, we can see the objective reasons, social media, manipulations through Facebook and others, creating bubbles, art in an artificial way, which is done not perhaps as an intentionally bad thing, but just to maximize profit. So the algorithm, in order to maximize profit, they automatically separate society. So this is one of the major reasons why in today's world we are seeing what is happening. The other reason, however, is the way how we select our leaders, how we vote. And this is an example of what is actually quite common. We might have a candidate one, which is a person who separates society, who has a certain number of supporters, all the other, or most of the other people being against. But what can easily happen is so-called vote splitting. So you can see that other voters are giving their preferences to other candidates. Nevertheless, with the system, as it is in the United States, winner takes all, first past the post, the candidate separating society wins. It is not only first past the post system. Here is a simplified model for explanation. Imagine that we have a political spectrum where on the left you have extreme leftists, on the right extreme right-wing people. It doesn't need to be left and right. And aware that in today's society, it's not that much about left and right. We have other issues. But for explaining the point of separation, this is good enough. And then we have people who are the consensual voters in the middle. What happens is that with one-vote voting system, the extreme have a serious distinct advantage. Now, how to fix that? What can we do? The idea is very simple. We can give people more votes. We can allow people to express their true and more detailed preferences. So giving more votes may actually, this is still those people who are consensual, even if it's a majority of them, it doesn't help because what happens is the vote splitting. Each of them preferring another party, vote splitting happening, the extremes win. So what do we do? With multiple vote system, we can increase the number of the people who are consensual. How does the logic work? More votes, meaning only one vote per one person. So if we take extremist, extreme left, such a voter uses his or her first vote for their preference, but probably doesn't use the other vote or votes, or may use them somewhere else, but not to the extreme, because the extreme is his only or her only preference. There's a separation. Similar on the right. However, those people who are consensual, who are in a sense in the center, they give their additional votes to other parties or to other candidates. Unique method for finding consensus. This is D21. The first or the simple definition of D21 is that each voter can vote for more people than there are winners. So if there is one winner, each voter can vote for 2 or 3 people. And we might have multiple winners, which we can see further. And it is indeed very easy. There is no complication. Unlike other more complicated voting system, which might be good, D21 is indeed so simple. If you take an official ballot, instead of choosing one candidate, you can simply cross stream. Now, and how, here I will give you a nice example. This is not only a theoretical example. This is something that happened in practice. When I was talking about D21 approximately 10 years ago, 9 years ago, in Washington, University of Washington at conference, I was there with my team from Institute H21, and we offered the participants to vote for a drink, which we will invite them after the talk. So with one vote only, what happened? I remember that beer won. I don't know the other drinks, I don't remember exactly, but beer was the winner with only one vote voting system. What happened if you had more of the second vote, then obviously, but the reality was that another drink was the winner. Now, very easy. Now, before I continue with the next slide, I would like to tell you a little bit about history, how D21 created, and you will see why in a moment. I started to be interested, to be active in a social issue in my country in year 2011, when I founded the Anti-Corruption Endowment. It was a very bold move, which was also a bit dangerous, and I became very favorite by many politicians. Nevertheless, after like 1 year of existence of the Anti-Corruption Endowment, where we would give prizes to whistleblowers, and also we would support some investigation cases and even perform some. And also I would have the opportunity to talk in person to many politicians, to members of parliament. And I realized one thing: corruption, being a cancer of society, danger cancer of society, is probably not the root of the problem of our society. The root of the problem is which people, what people are selected, what kind of people are the leaders that are making decisions for us all. And I realized in the Czech Republic, the situation is not good. It's not good elsewhere either. But in the Czech Republic especially, we have the proportional voting system, and the way it works, the rules are such that it kind of promotes corruption. Because those people who are liable, who have good connection to a political party, they get front seats, and they need to follow the instructions, etc., etc. So the thing I thought, okay, well, let's change the rules. Let's change the voting system, how people are voted. And in January 2012, I designed a voting system against corruption. The rules of the voting system were 2 votes, 2 plus votes. You can vote up to 2 people, 1 vote per 1 person. And 1 minus vote. You can vote against 1 person with 2 seat voting districts in parliament. So 2 people win, 2 plus votes, 1 minus vote. It was not D21, it was system against corruption. And this system is very very good in a sense that you can use a game theory argument to find out that under reasonable assumptions, it helps a lot to diminish corruption. Why is that? In my country at the time, it was quite known which people are corrupt. You had a political party with a list of candidates. People pretty much who are the corrupt ones, they still got voted, because the party got the votes and the people just were there. So with a voting system that would enable people to express their knowledge, this would significantly worsen the situation. There is a game theory argument in my paper to that, showing that in a simple model where you have 2 people right wing, 2 people left wing, one of them being corrupt, one of them being non-corrupt. So as soon as the disbalance between right and left is not too large, the people who will get elected will be the non-corrupt ones, one from left, one from right. Not too large, meaning if the ratio is between 3/7 and 5/7, the ratio of the left and right voters in this simple model. So we help to reduce corruption. So this was the minus vote. A year later, I got the idea of effect of multiple votes, where you can have more votes than the winners. And that was a very important. For me, it was a Heureka effect, because after going through consequences, I realized that this is something that can make a big change in the way politics works. At the time, I was a bit naive. I thought, oh, this is so obvious. You will see that it's very easy to argue. So the change should be coming and it should not take long. Well, I was obviously mistaken, because in the first place, those people who make the change are those politicians for whom it is not advantageous. So logical argument is not enough. Nevertheless, D21, the extended D21 also might include minus vote, and this is what happened in Washington 10 years ago. If you included the minus vote, you could see that the winner with only one vote was the last. This is a real example, so it's quite funny that it can really happen. Okay, so this is of course fun, voting for drinks or voting for food. But as I mentioned, the serious things are voting for people. And we might have one extremist person separating society, having sufficient support just to simply win with one vote only. As soon as you get additional votes, you are likely to find consensual candidates. The other votes for people are bringing in those who are consensual, those people who are not perhaps that attractive as first voters, a primary selection for people, but who might be second or third, but it is okay. Many more voters can be satisfied with their second selection. What are the key advantages of D21? Here is a list of rules. Let me tell in advance, obviously. We know from arrow impossibility theorem, there cannot be one single optimal voting system. I will get back to it a little bit more. Nevertheless, the important thing is D21 performs very well in most, perhaps all aspects of all criterions for voting system. And we will go through them during this talk. So first of all, participation and sincere voting. Now, what is the problem for many people? Lesser even vote. That's in Europe where we have multiple candidates, or here also if you have, anyway, if you have a voter system with multiple votes, you will have more candidates. And it is so important for people to be able to choose their true preference, not to do sincere voting rather than tactical voting. So first we will talk actually about participation. D21, with its multiple votes, helps people or motivates people to participate. We have experienced that and show that in many cases through the history of the last 10, 11 years. We have done participation projects in the Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, also in the United States and other countries where people vote for, they express their opinions, what can be done in the city. And these participation projects with D21 are more attractive, are very attractive for people. They motivate them to participate. You will see in a moment. We have tried that for voting in various competitions, like Czech singing competition, or in various NGOs as well. Here is a paper from data from the year 2019, where this is participation turnout for participatory budgeting. The numbers are not huge, obviously, because this is those people to come to participate in the project of the city. So this is not like political elections. But nevertheless, you can see that compared to other voting systems, D21 significantly increases participation. This is another paper. This paper talks about ranked choice voting. I'm not a proponent of ranked choice voting. I might explain a little bit more later. But nevertheless, in this characteristic, it has the same features, similar features as D21. People can express a wide range of preferences. They can say more. As soon as people can say more than just one word, they are more likely to participate. So if you can say more, if you can put more votes, you are not force for lesser evil. It is also logical that you will vote sincerely. Right? You have more votes, so you can vote for your primary, for your best candidate, and your second and third vote can go to those candidates who is compromised for you, but you have higher chance. So with D21, it is much more likely to motivate people for sincere voting. And again, this is logical, and there are papers to that prove it from theoretical and also practical point of view. Why would people vote strategically? Well, so that their vote do not get lost. Okay, but this is certainly psychologically not so appealing to vote for somebody you don't really like that much, if you have a best chance, but of course some people would do it. But it is discomfortable. With D21, imagine that you have 3 votes. Then you certainly vote for your best candidate. And yes, it might be strategically a little bit better to vote for another 2 candidates which have higher chance, but you already have more votes. So you use your vote for the strategic vote, and one of them or 2 of them you certainly spare for your most preferred candidate. So it is very unlikely to do strategic voting with D21. Here is a paper. There was a theoretical paper. This one is a practical paper. This was an experiment where people would get prizes. They would have candidates, and they would have for each candidate they would get a different amount of money, and they would vote. And we can see how people voted with priority, with 1 vote, strategically, or with approval voting. What is approval voting? Approval voting is that you can choose as many candidates as you want. It has, again, similar feature with D21, with the difference that there is no upper limit on the number of votes, which is, in some cases, a weakness. Nevertheless, for this application or for this analysis, it is very similar. So you can see that there is a major difference between strategic and sincere voting for the 2 cases. And now I will mention the most important aspect of what we are searching for. We need to search for consensus. We need to find leaders which appeal to society, which who are motivated to unite society rather than separate. For that, let's look at some analysis of how different candidates may look like. This is a theoretical, like 4 edges of typical candidates. Obviously, if there is a popular candidate, meaning that for many voters it's a first choice, and very few voters dislike such a candidate, that should be a person to win, right? Well, with first past the post, so the weak voting system, it can easily happen that the polarizing candidate like that beats even this candidate. Well, this is an unpopular candidate. No voting system will choose him as a winner. And this is a medium candidate. In practice, obviously, these are extremes, but in practice, you may be fighting about polarizing candidate and more medium candidates. Now, here we have a very nice practical examples. These will be names of presidential candidates for the last presidential elections. So I'm not there because I was not. The reason I won't be there is because I couldn't. They didn't admit my signatures, which I had 73,000 signatures. The minimum was supposed to be 50,000, but that's another story. I can tell you in private. So I wasn't able to run in the political discussions. Nevertheless, the winner was popular candidate Petr Pavel. So, and this is actually our representative sample analysis. So these are real data that you can see. This was an example of an unpopular candidate. This is Babiš, Mr. Babiš, who is now going to be prime minister. He was running for Czech presidency, and he is indeed a strongly polarizing candidate. And there will be a medium candidate, Mr. Fischer. So these were the votes the representative sample analysis of the candidates for presidential elections, for last presidential elections a year ago. And you can see that with one vote only, Petr Pavel would still win, but it's very close margin. So here, D21 would not change the voting result, but nevertheless, we can illustrate the proportions and the dynamics. So so they are very close with one vote system only, okay? And the other candidates are much weaker. Now, with D21, when we have second or third vote, changes dramatically, or changes a big way. You can see that Petr Pavel, being a non-separate consensual candidate, gets quite a few second and third votes. There was another candidate who was relatively weak with one vote, but is consensual, so she would get second and third votes. And Mr. Babiš got to third place. So that's D21 without the minus vote. And what would you expect happens if we add minus vote? Yeah, indeed. Mr. Babiš got barely stays above zero, because he's a separated candidate, as we could see before. So here, D21 would not change the result because Mr. Pavel still won. But here are another elections. Czech presidential elections before. So it was 6 years ago. This is a representative sample, percentages for the candidates 6 years ago. Mr. Zeman, who was our president before, was the winner, and he is the person who is separating society, very controversial person. Jiří Drahoš is an academician, a professor at university. He ran second, and then here you can see the preferences based on the first past the post, one vote only. And now we will see the change, how it would be totally different with voting system D21. You can see that with D21, Mr. Drahoš, being consensual candidate, jumps by a big margin and beats the separating candidate Zeman, who gets very little, very few second and third votes. And there are other candidates coming in. And again, what would you expect if we had also the minus vote? So, and this is all representative sample. So these numbers are relatively, we had a large sample, large enough, good standard errors. So it's very reliable numbers. So here Jiří Drahoš stays first and Mr. Zeman goes all the way down. So this is D21 with minus vote. Have you heard about statements that democracy doesn't work, that voting is just so bad, and it would be much better to just have a random choice, to choose a random person to lead the society rather than voting? Well, it is, what do you think? Is it reasonable? Does it make sense? Well, hopefully not. When I heard these arguments, no, this just doesn't make sense. But nevertheless, with my team, we did analysis, Monte Carlo simulations based on some setup and assumptions, obviously, but reasonable assumptions. And here on x-axis is a distance between group of voters. We have here three groups of voters, the center voters, let's say left and right, with some stochastics, some volatility, some spread. And on the y-axis is the efficiency of voting system, how good the voting system does. Obviously, the line up here is choosing the best candidate. Line down here is choosing the worst candidate. And here is the random vote, the utility of a random vote. Now here you can see what happens if the society is separated enough. And this is only for three candidates. If the society is separated enough, then the first past the post and also two-round voting system, they both perform worse than a random choice. This is for 3 candidates. If we have more, 12 candidates, we can see that the first past the post becomes worse than the random choice already quite soon. So in today's situation where the society is separate as much as it is, then indeed it might be the case that a random choice would be better than voting. And this is not something that's going to work in the long run, I'm afraid. Simplicity, transparency, and trust. I have already argued that D21 is very simple. Here you can see, again, remind you the ballot. Instead of choosing only one name, you can choose up to 3. It's that simple. Now, we have run, of course, tests amongst people, explore online survey and also in-person survey. And here you can see the results. D21 with plus votes has lower margin of error than the one vote only system. So the simple one vote system where you can only have one vote has more errors than D21. Well, the reason apparently being that with D21 you can choose more candidates. Yeah? So approval voting, by the way, where you can choose unlimited number of candidates, has no errors. So that's logical. D21 by votes has a little bit higher errors. Here the big error jumps, for example, for instant runoff or the Austrian system, which is complicated and people make mistakes. So here is just a simple wrap-up of the properties for different voting system. For your information, majority judgment is quite a good voting system, although it is very complicated, but it's good. But you can see that first past the post being very simple, D21 is also satisfies all the criteria. You don't, it's not complicated. It's only one day that's the advantage. You don't have a two-run voting system, which is not good in the Czech Republic. It's not only much more costly, but mainly people are not interested. They do not come to the second round, etc. So this is a list of different criterions. The D21 doing very well in all of them. Now, opportunities for small parties and independent candidates. If we take proportional and majority voting system like here, both of them have certain advantages and disadvantages. The big disadvantage of majority voting system is that we don't have representation. The disadvantages of proportional system is that it might be more difficult to form a government because if there are too many political parties. I say something that might look like a paradox. With D21, we are taking the advantages of both sides. With D21, we have some openness to change, some representation. In fact, we open the door for new candidates, for somebody who is a surprise, who is totally new. And at the same time, D21 voting for one or two people, voting for specific people, has this majoritarian effect that you will not have too many small political parties, too many different candidates. How is that possible? How can that both be possible? Well, the reason being that if you take the structure, and let me talk now about more political parties. It's not the case here in US, but it's in Europe. So if you have more political parties and you change the system to D21, a political party that is strong and consensual is likely to be even stronger. So for it is likely to be easier to form a government. A political party that is relatively large, but is a separating society, is going to drop a lot. So what will happen is that, let's say, medium political parties, they either increase their strength or they drop a lot. So we kind of change the distribution towards the edges. And we bring a chance for somebody who is a surprise for few independent small candidates. And I will show you an example from practice. Again, presidential elections, not in the Czech Republic, but in Slovakia. This is again a representative sample that we did last year, Slovakian presidential elections. On the left side, you can see the first past the post results. On the right side, you can see D21. Now look what happened. Third candidate, how he increased, and Jan Kubiš, the sixth candidate, almost nothing, would be such a surprise with his second and third vote. He was the diplomat, and he was so consensual that he would jump so much. No, he would not win, but nevertheless, what would happen? This would support, this would give major information, right? So for next presidential election, such a candidate is much more likely to win. It would open the door to something new. Very nice result last year. Now, what I consider the optimal version of D21 for parliament, 2 voting districts, 4+ votes, so each voter can vote for up to 4 people, and in addition we can have 1- vote. How does it run here? If you think about it logically, theoretically, you have a preference for a certain political party which will nominate 2 candidates. It doesn't. No political party would nominate more than 2 because they would compete with each other. It is an option for a small party to nominate only 1 candidate. That's a very good option. And you as a voter have 4 votes. Assuming that you prefer this one party, you give 2 votes to the 2 candidates of your favorite political party, and you have 2 more votes. What will you do? Well, you will look around. You are motivated to do some education, to learn something, and you will choose somebody who is new, who is interesting, and because you have additional votes, you will use them. So it is likely, that's a good possibility, good opportunity. There might be a new candidate, a surprising, interesting, charismatic candidate running into the elections with 2 voting districts who might win. Yeah, so first of all, you give the information, but also even in practice, this 2 voting districts, the openness to new and unexpected candidate is large. So again, how would the political spectrum look like? We are likely to have few stronger parties who have a lot of candidates win, and to have some few small parties, independent candidates who are in the parliament who can raise voice. So we are open to dynamics. We are open to change here. I believe this is very important feature which is unique for D21. Positive campaigning. So we know, we can see that huge waste in human potential, huge waste in democracy is campaigning. It's so costly. And it just separates society. The candidates go against each other. They dislike each other. They throw dirt on each other, etc., etc. This is happening. This is happening here. This is happening in Europe. This is happening, in fact, everywhere. Not with D21. Imagine that you are a presidential candidate, a serious one, and you want to win. You have your group of supporters. How will your presidential campaign look like? Would you, and not, I mean, don't mean you, but let's say the candidate, would such a candidate throw dirt on his or her opponents? But it's irrational, because in order to win, one needs to get at least some second and third votes of the voters. So you cannot separate the society, have only your group of voters and annihilate or ally, just separate from others. That wouldn't work. So a rational campaign, the way I see it, of course, I don't have data for that because we don't have political data from political elections with D21, so I cannot have data. But it is so logical that a reasonable campaign would be that you take at least some of your opponents and you say something like, oh, this opponent, I like this part of his program, that makes sense to me. Of course, I want to do it even better. So you might have a competition in campaigning competition with program, who is better. So it can be actually constructive. So something that is extremely costing democracy, campaigning, can be something that is constructive and that can further improve the programs or the objectives of different candidates. So positive campaigning, I believe, very important. And if we increase the tone of that, it will also motivate people to lessen their hatred, lessen their separation. We are getting back how to get rid of separation of society. So here's a wrap up, D21. I mentioned already, no voting system is the best. Well, for example, what would be the best voting system if we have experts voting, judging wines, voting which wine is the better? Not D21. Certainly not. Those are experts, it's not many of them, so we need to give them a rank of 1 to 10 or whatever, they're ranking different wines and sum up the results. So D21 is not for that. But on the other hand, if we have a situation where there are many voters, many people, I dare to say that D21 is best. Sometimes D21 with the minus vote, sometimes not. The minus vote does have some disadvantages. If, for example, we have a situation with religious minorities, there could be that the minus vote would be attraction because of some preferences stuff. So not always with the minus vote, but the D21 with just the effect multiples, I don't see, and I haven't seen any throughout the years, weakness that would make it worse than any other voting system for large parliamentary elections. And now here only a wrap up. First past the post, I consider voting system version 1.0, if we take it from the software point of view. It is democracy, but not a very good one, because in a situation like that, random choice is probably better. Proportional voting system like in Czech Republic, it's probably better. It has other weaknesses. It's not good either. And then we have a voting system like STV, single transfer vote, or the ranked choice voting. It is very complicated. It is not good. After the talk, I can say more arguments why it is a little bit funny. Here in the United States, in some states, in like Maine and I believe Washington or something, people did make a change and they are using STV. But I dare to say you, and you can look the details in my paper, of the group, of the set of voting systems which are complicated, STV is the worst one that I know of. And the worst one of the complexity is being implemented in practice. Isn't that funny? I think it's like a joke of our space, of our universe, of our civilization. Now, D21 is a voting system, D1.9 unnoted here is the system against corruption, which I described. And now we have D21, and it's a jump from DOS to Windows. We are going from version 1x to 2.1, so that's why D21. And finally, with one vote, you can only express one word. With multiple votes, you can express a whole sentence. And this is our goal. This is what we need. We need to enable people to express their whole opinion, to be much happier with the results, and to be peaceful and consensual. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Great. We have some handheld mics, but smaller audience. Any questions?
Maybe the mics for the recording.
So if we use the microphone, you'll hear it on the recording. So I'll bring it up one sec.
So like in your example where everyone has 4 votes and there's like 2 seats, why wouldn't each party just run 4 candidates and just say vote for the 4 candidates from our party? This seems like kind of
but because they would compete with each other. Now, of course, if you took the assumption that there is a party and it has voters and all voters blindly follow the party and they give the party all their votes, then it might help strategically. But in reality, you have 4 candidates, right? And you have people having different. So the 4 candidates would compete with each other. They would split the vote. Yeah. So yes, under some theoretical assumptions, in extreme, it might be advantageous, but in reality, it wouldn't, because it's not that. It won't be the case that people are just blindly voting only for one party. So they would create competition for themselves. So people. So if you take somebody who prefers this party X and it has 4 seats, 4 candidates. It is likely that it will lose. So if the party has 2 candidates and you have a voter supporting the party and he has 4 votes, he is likely to give the 2 votes to the party. Yeah, but if it has 4 candidates, it is very likely that even if it's a voter of this party, he or she might want to save the votes for somebody else as well. Yeah, so the average number is most certainly going to drop. Yeah, in realistic examples, if you think about it.
Okay. Yeah. The one like realistic example I can as far as like election of 1800 in the U.S., like each elector in the electoral college had 2 votes, like because president first, vice president second, and they've both voted for the same people.
Thank you for reminding me. This is something what I wanted to ask you. Is D21 new, or was it already in history sometimes? D21 is fact, it wasn't new. It was used here in the United States for first 4 presidential elections. The first one, 1800, Jefferson won. Why was it D21? It was D21 because people had 2 votes. And there was a president as a winner and vice president as second, right? But of course, the president was the important one. So in fact, in reality, it was D21 for the first 4 elections. What happened? In 1800, 2 candidates, Jefferson and somebody else, they had split, both of them having 73 votes. And then there was a rule that somehow Congress, I don't know how it was, but it wasn't very logical. It was a mess. It was a problem. So after the 4th election, they decided to change it. Yeah. So it was, so D21 already saw the spot of the light. So I found that later, a few years later, and it was a nice discovery. So actually, it is tradition here. And maybe this could be an argument here for United States to go back to original voting system, or closer to the original voting system that was 200 years ago. Thank you.
So my question was kind of similar in terms of what are the
Sorry. I mean, he asked kind of the same question I was going to ask, is like, what is the domain of that where you see number of candidates within a party? So it's kind of the question he was asking, where the voting system doesn't, behave the way you would expect it to.
I'm not sure I understand the question. So are you saying that it might be good for a political party?
No. I was going to ask a question similar to that of what is the domain of that, the range of which number of candidates within a party where the system doesn't work.
But how would it work? Number of candidates? I still don't understand.
It was similar to this question where if there was 4 candidates within a party.
Yeah. So I was arguing that if there are 2 seat voting, this is only to win. So if party nominates 4 candidates, it would create competition amongst them for their voters, and we cannot expect that most or all voters of the political party will give everything to this one. Yeah. So this is So for example, if you have simple imagination, there is only one winner, and a political party would nominate 2 candidates, right? And so even if people have 2 votes, some of them might want to give the second vote to somebody else. So So there's, yeah, I mean, yes, under some assumptions, it could theoretically be advantageous. That would be strategic kind of voting, that you would add additional candidates to take away the votes, possible votes for the opponents. Theoretically, yes.
Thank you. More questions?
I was curious, so you mentioned that some states have implemented different voting systems, obviously not D21, but systems that are not first past the post, but there's also been some pushback against that. Do you think it's more effective to change, like in the US, the voting systems vary, it's first past the post, one of the worst possible options. Do you think it's more effective to kind of on a small level change the voting system and slowly build up, or try to totally overhaul the system all at once, in light of the fact that in the real world, the people who benefit from first past the post are likely to push back against any attempt to change that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tactical question. I'm not sure. Of course, we can say in general, any voting system is better than the first past the post. So the instant runoff is of course better. I was explaining why it's not a good choice, because you can have other more complicated voting system which are much better. How to change what is the good tactics? Hard to say. One good tactic might be to motivate people to change the voting system for primaries. And in fact, we have discussed it with some of you today or yesterday. Yeah, I don't know how to do it best, especially here in the United States. Perhaps I can imagine that because situation is such a crisis, I say that we are experiencing a collapse, in some sense, collapse of Western civilization, and people are not open to changes. It is actually a kind of known psychological facts that even if there is a change which can be only better, you just don't know how much better it will be, people might still oppose it, unless they are forced to, unless there is a real problem. And in Europe, I am afraid the problems are going to come. They might be coming here as well. So it is an opportunity for change. And in that situation, I can imagine that the change could be, I don't want to say the dramatic, or just on a large scale from up to down. So more intense rather than going through step by step. Yeah, because of that. So I would expect that the change, I would shoot for change which is more rapid and more intense. Yeah.
Yes.
So do you have any insight as to how this might complicate voting for multiple, I guess, different positions, beside president, vice president, going all the way down? Because obviously when you vote, you're voting for several seats, several roles. Do you have any insight as to how much time that would take to try to vote multiple across?
This obviously D21 is all the positions have the same value, so to speak, right? So the two the voting districts are for parliament. If it's one voting, you are voting for vice president, vice president at the same time. It is different, although I think that let's say that we have president, vice president, and we have two votes. I think it is still very good. Yeah. We might add third vote here. So if there are like additional, I don't know how to, positions which are not so important, we just use the result of the voting. I think it is okay. It's fine. It doesn't invalidate the result. Another question might be if would that make sense to have more seats, like 3 or 4 seat voting districts? Perhaps, but then the voting becomes more complicated in a sense that there are many more candidates. People need to study more, and also the effect of it is. Let me say that after the experience and thought that we have done, I believe that the 2 seats are kind of the optimum. Yeah, that more seats is already just too much. if you, for example, if you go to extreme, if you had like 12 seats or something, then the effect of D21 is not so good anymore. Yeah, if you have 12 seats and 21 votes, it is not that much different if we have 12 seats and 12 votes. So the effect of consensus decreases rapidly, yeah, after a certain number.
Let's wrap up. I have a quick question about the -1 vote. I think one of the negatives you mentioned there were two negatives, if I remember. One was explaining the method, maybe voter education, and the other one was count.
How it happened?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that negative was. I thought it was.
With the minus vote, it is more complicated to count, but it's obviously just -1, right? +1, -1. So yeah, but for people, it might be they might be more confused. We have experienced that with the minus vote, people are much more confused.
And last quick clarification, going back to what Tolson mentioned, and you also shared, was there the electoral system at the time when they did the Jefferson one before abandoning D21 type method, in the 1800s? Sorry?
I believe the first vote was 76, 77. 70, 76.
Oh, okay. So it was about the electoral.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or 7. No, it was 1789. 1789. It was the first. And then 3 years later, and it was after 4 years. And the fourth one was 1800 when Jefferson won with the split. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and thank Karel again for a very good